Hello everyone and welcome to the 14th episode of the iDebate server. I'm moderator for tonight's debate, Centrist, and the topic will be, should transgenders have rights? Arguing in the affirmative is the iPhone user, religion is bullshit, and arguing in the negative is another iPhone user, SicSemper Tyrannis. Each debater will be given a 5-minute opening argument. After each debater has given their opening, they will then have 10 minutes to rebut their opponent. After rebuttals, they will have 20 minutes of open dialogue, asking each other questions with as minimal interruptions as possible. After the dialogue, they will both offer a 5-minute closing. This will conclude the debate, at which point we will allow audience members to connect and ask questions to the debaters. The debaters will only answer questions they are directly asked, so if you wish to hear both people answer, make sure to ask both of them. The Q&A will last approximately 20 minutes. After this 30 minutes has expired, the recording will stop, so any further discussion between the debaters or the audience will not be included in the YouTube upload. The rules are quite simple. The debaters will not be allowed to go over the time period during the opening, or they will be muted. The rebuttal, however, will be giving 15 to 20 seconds of overlap, since the debaters will likely be creating it as we go along. The open dialogue will be as free as possible, and while the debaters are restricted from directly insulting one another at any point during the exchange, profanity will not be censored as long as it is not used gratuitously. If the conversation between the debaters becomes incoherent, I, the moderator, will intervene to bring it back to the point at hand. The closing will also last for no more than 5 minutes, or the debater will be muted. During each phase of the debate, I will let the debaters know when they have 1 minute left, 30 seconds left, 10 seconds left, and if they're still talking after the time expires, they will be muted and we'll move on to the next phase. The audience is allowed to utilize the debate chat to fact-check the debaters and deliberate the topic amongst themselves. However, you will not be allowed to connect until the Q&A, at which point a queue will be initiated for you to join if you do wish to ask a question. If both debaters understand and agree to the rules, we'll go ahead and begin. RAB, since you're arguing the affirmative of the motion this evening, you'll be given your opening argument first. You may start whenever you're ready.
Okay, so do you have the time set up there? Okay, so should transgender people have rights? Yes, that is the end of my opening. No, I'm only joking. Okay, so obviously, yes, I do believe that transgender people should have rights, but just because this is probably inevitably going to come up, be it from Sick himself or be it from a fellow caller later after the debate has ended. The bathroom bill issue, this regularly comes up when we're talking about transgender issues. I find it to be one of the greatest examples of irony that I can possibly think of. The reason for that is because the wording of the bills, the wording of people who are arguing in favor of these bills are saying, well, we shouldn't let men into female bathrooms. But you see, the wording of the bill requires that somebody use the bathroom of their birth sex. So if you imagine a scenario where somebody who was born female, who is now male, who has gone through several years of hormones, who has had top and bottom surgery, who has a fully functioning penis, you are now legally forcing them to use the female bathrooms. So in an effort to stop men going into the female bathrooms, you are now legally forcing men to go into the female bathrooms. As I said at the start of this, is the greatest example of irony I can possibly think of. So when this topic was initially proposed, I saw a lot of comments, I saw a lot of feedback that were saying, well, yeah, obviously trans people should have rights, but if we're arguing about special rights or about extra rights, then that's where I kind of draw the line, and that's a perfectly understandable position. However, what my opponent tonight seems to misunderstand is that is exactly what he is advocating for. So because of his religious views and his religious beliefs and his religious opinions, he believes that everybody should follow what he believes and what he thinks. The reason why this is an issue and why this is advocating for extra rights is because it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, it doesn't matter what anybody else feels, what anybody else's rights are, and what their experiences are, etc. If he thinks it, then it should be so, and that's obviously a massive issue. I'm going to yield the rest of my time to the exchange.
Okay, thank you very much, RAB. SicSemper, if you would like to start with your own opening arguments, you may do so.
All right, give me a second here. I'm against trans rights because their way of life is in violation of the Torah, and it also negates the sacred story of creation. Not only do I want to argue from a theological perspective, but I would also like to argue from a secular standpoint that people who identify as trans can be considered mentally ill in most cases and pose a risk to themselves, and in more uncommon circumstances pose a threat to others. But I could elaborate more on that claim later, but I don't have the statistics on me to back it up, so you can just get about that one. Hold on a second. I'm not saying it's inherent for trans people to have gender dysphoria, but in my experience, most or every trans person I've spoke to has gender dysphoria, and it is an illness in which the individual cannot handle living in their own bodies, and at times feel the only way to alleviate their discontent with their own bodies is to go through gender reassignment surgery, which I view as mutilation. In some cases, people who can't go through surgery, or even after the surgery, may end up harming themselves because it's not what they expected, or because they were unable to go through this transition. Contrary to what some people may think, I do not have a dislike for these individuals, but I feel sorry for them and I feel the need to help them. I don't think they should be neglected, but I view there to be better alternatives to assist these people to prevent them from harming themselves, other than trying to appeal to their wants as trying to identify with that gender. I know I may be talking about more extreme situations as I haven't looked into the statistics enough, but this is my main issue with trans life from a secular standpoint, and other less extreme cases such as someone who considers themselves to be trans but hasn't gone through HRT yet that may be discussed later, but right now I view that as like the main issue, because when most people use the term trans, they usually imply people who have gone through HRT and gender reassignment surgery, but that is my opening argument.
Okay, thank you very much, SicSemper, for your opening argument. RAB, since you began with your opening argument, you now may begin with your first rebuttal.
Okay, yeah, so there was a few points there that were brought up. You had claimed that trans people were mentally ill. Yeah, so this kind of quite often comes up. As somebody with a background in psychology, it often pains me when people say this, when they don't finish the evidence or the what's the right word of saying it, when they don't fully explain what psychologists mean when they say that gender dysphoria is a mental illness. So they also go on to list the way that you can cure gender dysphoria, and that is to allow them to transition. I personally take issue based on that grounds alone that it can be classified as a mental illness. Something such as schizophrenia, that is obviously a mental illness. There is no known cure for schizophrenia. There is a known cure for gender dysphoria, and that is to allow people to go about changing their gender. You had said that you would view this as genital mutilation. That's I mean, that can be extremely easily just kind of excused away as that's just your opinion. It's not the opinion of the general populace. It's not the opinion of the people who are recommending that somebody have the surgeries. The reason why why some trans people do harm themselves even after surgery is because we know this. There is not an adequate amount of counseling services after the surgeries. This is an extremely difficult time for them. Obviously, some people who are trans have dreamed about this day for years. They have dreamed about looking in the mirror and looking at a body that reflects the gender that they feel inside. But also kind of seeing that after effect, even after all of the relevant surgeries, there is still it can be a shock to those people when they like finally see this, and it's been this built up moment in their mind for so long. they do need counseling services even after all of the services, and that's just not applied to them. You would said that when most people think of trans people, they think of people who have been through all of the surgery. No, that's just simply not true. Even pre-op trans people are still transgender. They are.
Can I interrupt for a second? I'm sorry.
Apologies, no interruptions. Stephen may proceed.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So trans people, so pre-op trans people still meet the baseline similarities with people who have been through all of the surgeries, and that is that the body that they were born into does not reflect the gender that they feel that they are. And if that is enough of a similarity, then they should be considered trans people too. So that's going to be the end of my rebuttal.
Okay, thank you very much, RAV, for a rebuttal. SicSemper, you may now respond with a rebuttal of your own. Please proceed.
All right, you did say a lot in there, and I'm going to dig in a little bit to the first two things that come to mind. Is what I was about to interrupt you there is I'm not saying that people who haven't gone through the HRT and the surgeries, all that, are not trans. That's not my argument. They are trans. I've brought that up in the last argument, but perhaps you may have just misunderstood. And the second, more bigger topic is the topic of how I consider it to be mutilation in a sense, because it is essentially harming an organ of the body to change and alter it. I think the best example that I could use is I'm not sure what it's called, transableism or something like that. I'm not sure if it's a real thing, but it can be used as a hypothetical at best, and that's what I'm going to use it as. For example, someone would want, say, just the top of their pinky finger cut off, and they just can't live with themselves if they still have that part attached to their body. And no matter how minor and inconsequential a surgery would be to get that finger removed, it would still be harming the body. And I perceive the surgery and HRT and all this as enabling the illness and not curing it. I view it as a direct result of the illness rather than a cure. And I don't claim to be an expert on the methods of curing trans people or whatever. I just simply think that there are most likely better alternatives out there that can be used to better aid these individuals and to maybe even reinstate them back into society where they are happy with the gender that they were born as. And that's all I know you said a lot, but there's a lot that I don't immediately remember, but I guess that's my rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much to RAB and SicSemper for some very insightful opening arguments and rebuttals. Now, because neither of you decided to use much of your time on your openings or indeed on your rebuttals, we have a good deal of time for the free-form discussion. Normally, this would be allocated of 20 minutes. Now we're in excess of approaching for approximately about 29 minutes of open discussion. So I will now open the floor to both of you.
29.
Yes,
Okay.
29 is correct. You did not use much of your time.
Okay.
So I will now open the floor to both of you. So long as you abided by the rules outlined at the start, I won't proceed.
Yeah. Okay. So I had taken down a few points there just kind of while you were talking. So the last thing that you had mentioned was about somebody like looking at their pinky finger and not being able to live any longer if they still have their pinky finger attached. Yeah, that's a mental illness, but it's not gender dysphoria.
I know it's not gender dysphoria. I'm using it as kind of like an example of something that can be compared to.
Well, it can't be compared to it because it's not relevant in any way.
And this is a good point that I immediately thought of. Dan said it to me, and he says, a good thing, Ted, is that by socially accepting the procedure, you hinder the research for real ways of curing gender dysphoria.
I'm sorry?
When you socially accept the procedure, you are kind of negating and Oh no, are you cutting out?
I think you're cutting out. I couldn't hear you there towards it.
Can you hear me well now?
Yeah.
Okay, what part didn't you hear?
If you want to just start from the sentence that like you were saying, because I'm after forgetting it.
Oh yeah. Excuse me. By socially accepting the procedure, you hinder the research for real ways of curing gender dysphoria that can be used without any alterations towards the body.
Okay, so every single psychotherapist that has ever dealt with a case of gender dysphoria has said that the cure for gender dysphoria is to allow them to transition. So you saying that allowing them to transition is not looking for a cure, but that is the cure. We found it.
So the cure is to severely alter your body and potentially injure it, and you're essentially changing and altering your body in very significant ways. And there have been people out there before, I'm not sure about the statistics, but there have been people that have regretted the procedure because it wasn't what they expected.
Yeah, okay, so I have also come across that. An average of the studies that I have seen is that it is less than 1%. I would argue that that is somewhat irrelevant. But here's the thing. So you're kind of viewing this as like a mutilation or as like a permanent altering to your body. But you see, here's the thing. If that person is expressing informed, enthusiastic consent, right? So if they are informed about everything that is going to happen, okay, if they meet with several doctors and they are telling them this is what is going to happen, this is the exact procedure, this is like step by step, detail by detail, exactly what is going to happen, and they are still enthusiastic about that particular procedure still going through, then we have to allow them to do it because they are consenting to that procedure.
Okay, but can you provide the source for which you claimed that it's less than 1%? I'm not doubting you. I'm just curious.
Yeah, sure. If you want to just bear with me there just for 2 seconds. If you just kind of want to move on to like a separate, if you have another point or something to bring up.
I'd like to focus on this point before I move to any more, and if you could potentially... Oh, actually, I'm going to continue with the whole mutilation thing, because even if that person, like the... Oh, what's the word I'm searching for here? The hypothetical in which that person is very discontent with having the tip of their pinky finger attached to their body, and they want it removed, and they feel depressed when it isn't removed, and someone goes to remove it, it's still problematic. It's still mutilation, despite the person being content with it. Oh, Ted asked, "Isn't the debate about transgender people having rights?" I went through that. That went through my mind on the last second. We're arguing about medical processes because it's the problem with being transgender to begin with. Are you saying, for example, not for example, let me think. Ted, are you saying that we should talk about rights of people who have went through HRT and such? No, you weren't interrupting. It's fine. RIB was receiving.
Yeah, okay. So I just posted in the link that I was talking about there.
Can you post it in debate text chat, because that's what I posted originally.
All right, thank you. No problem.
Everybody, I'm just going to interrupt very briefly. I miscalculated the time allocated to freeform discussion. It is a whopping 39 minutes.
That's what I thought.
So by all means, feel free to fresh out what is transgenderism, etc., then moving on to what transgender rights are. You're under no constraint for time. Please continue.
All right. Do you have any comments about the analogy before we move on?
Yeah, okay. So if you just want to kind of quickly restate it, just because I was just scanning the source that I was in there just to make sure it was the right one that I had read before. If you just want to quickly restate it.
Okay. The analogy I went with is someone who who is very discontent with having their pinky finger, for example.
Pinky finger,
if they
yeah,
go
okay.
through the procedure and they're informed about it and everything that's going to happen, and they decide to get it removed, and they are content with the procedure, it's still harming the individual, and it may potentially be enabling their disorder. And
Why is that? Why is that harming?
Huh?
Why is that harming them?
It's harming them physically.
Why? Because they're
What do
going
you mean?
through
Why?
surgery?
It's literally losing a piece of your
Do you
body.
think that it's harming them because they're going through surgery?
The thing is, you're going through a surgery. They're going in there to get their genitals, like, what's the best term? I don't want to use any sharp terms here. I want to choose them
You can say
carefully.
removed. You can say removed.
Yeah, removed. Sure.
Altered. That's also
They're going
another.
there to get their genitals removed or altered. It's an organ, a part of the body that is physical harm, objectively.
Okay, but I mean, like, if you go into a hospital and you have to have your leg amputated, could that not also be defined as physical
That
harm?
depends on the circumstances. If you're going there because you feel that you can't live with that leg anymore and it's just an emotional thing, I think that's a problem. I do deem that mutilation. But if someone is, I'm not sure of the circumstances in which someone may need to get a leg removed, but let's say, for example, I'm not a medical expert, so I'm just using this as a hypothetical. If someone is poisoned throughout the body from the point of their leg, and their leg needs to get removed in order to stop the poison from spreading, I don't view that as mutilation, because they would have been harmed more severely otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Do you not take into account the intense emotional and mental damage that it will do if you don't allow somebody who is
I absolutely
trans?
do take it into account. I feel great sympathy for these people. I just think that there should be different alternatives sought for.
Hang on. So why are you allowing it in the case of somebody having their leg removed, but you are not allowing it, or that you were not in favor of it? That's probably a better way of phrasing it. That you are not in favor of somebody who is transgender having their genitals altered. Why are you okay with it in one instance but not in the other?
Because in the medical instance, it may be used to save their life or save them from greater and more devastating effects if they were.
Okay, so what if you have a transgender person who is incredibly depressed and who is at risk of suicide? That wouldn't that be injuring their life if they don't go through with the operation?
The thing is, how do I phrase this? The person is only a threat to themselves. It's not like poison is going through their body, or if they'll immediately die from medical circumstances if they don't get reassignment surgery. It's an emotional problem.
Well, I would argue that somebody who is severely suicidal would die pretty immediately if they don't have that particular surgery, yeah.
What if you physically restrain them from being able to do such a thing? If you physically restrain someone with their leg that needs to be amputated, and they're going to die if they don't get that leg amputated, they're still going to die even if they're physically restrained.
I mean, I would equate that to possibly GBH, considering the method that you use to restrain them, which is another crime in and of itself.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I was just responding to someone.
I would equate there is a possibility that the method in which you use to restrain them would be equivalent to GBH, which is a crime in and of itself.
Could you please define GBH for everybody?
Yeah, it's grievous bodily harm.
Grievous bodily harm.
Yeah.
Physically restrained. When I say physically restrained, what immediately comes to your mind?
Usually it is your wrists and ankles restrained, but then again, it can sometimes be restrained by the neck, by your forehead, and by your chest as well.
And you
depending
said
on the severity,
comparable to grievous bodily harm?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, if they continue to struggle and they cause lacerations or bruises on them, yeah.
Well, the thing is, there are greater ways of restraining people that don't cause them to do that.
Such as?
Nothing immediately comes to mind. I'm not an expert in these types of restraints, but I'm pretty much entirely positive if you gave me different methods at my disposal to be able to restrain people, I could get one where they are absolutely not able to move. I think that's within possibility.
Okay. So I kind of want to just ask you a question just from this standpoint. If somebody is, as I said, expressing informed, enthusiastic consent, by what right do you use to attempt to restrict them from going ahead?
Sorry to answer your question with another question, but would that same mindset be applicable to someone who wants their leg removed despite not needing urgent medical care?
If they are expressing informed, enthusiastic consent, I can think of no possible reason as to object to what they are doing. I can disagree with it, and I can say that it is an unnecessary operation because, it just is. But I can think of no possible rebuttal as to offer somebody who is expressing informed, enthusiastic consent.
Okay, and that's where we separate on terms of ethics, and of course my ethics are derived from my religion, and I've been meaning to ask this. Can I go slightly off topic?
Yeah, by all means.
On what basis or foundation do you base your morals upon?
Well-being.
Well-being.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha. And you base your morality or your ethics on that, and I base my ethics, of course, on my religion. So.
Well, I would base my ethics on well-being. Excuse me. I would base my personal morality on well-being. My ethics come from different places. They are interchangeable, yes, but they have slight differences. So my ethics would be based on the golden rule.
Okay, I see.
Which, for anybody who in the audience who is unaware, it was first coined about 700 years before the New Testament was written, before it was hijacked by the New Testament, which says that do unto others as you would have done unto you. So that is the golden rule, just in case anybody didn't know what that was. So you can continue.
Okay. Do you have any other... Well, well-being, do you view emotional well-being as taking priority over physical well-being?
It would depend on the context, but potentially yes.
So in the circumstance of someone who wants their leg amputated?
I would deem that an unnecessary procedure that is predicated by some other potentially undiagnosed or even unfounded mental illness, and that as long as
would you say the same thing about trans people or
No, because transgender people have gender dysphoria, and we know the cure for that is to allow them to have their surgeries.
So would you argue that the cure for the person who wants their leg removed to just amputate their leg?
No, that would be probably years of intense psychotherapy.
Probably years of intense psychotherapy.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me essentially what the main difference between the two is?
Yeah. So sure. Okay. So if you look down at your leg and you think that it shouldn't be there, and there isn't any sort of a physical reason, there isn't like a severe infection, there isn't any poison, as you had alluded to earlier. There is no physical reason why you would need your leg amputated, taken off, and yet you insist that based on mental health reasons that you would need it to be taken off. That is a problem of mental health. It's not a physical problem. It's a problem of mental health. And so we would need to work with that individual to improve their mental health.
I do
And
apologize, everybody. I want to interrupt very quickly just to remind everybody that the topic of tonight's debate is, should transgenders have rights? I understand that what you're talking about is tangentially related to this, but please, maybe can we bring it back on topic? Thank you very much.
I definitely should have asked to rename the topic because it's not exactly what I had in mind, and the answer to the question itself is derived in both of our ethics, which would be basically pointless to argue. We both have very different mindsets that can't be argued, essentially. Our philosophies are fundamentally different, and I don't think we'd be able to come to a conclusion, mutual conclusion on whether people should have trans rights or not. And also, trans rights itself, it's a vague term that should have been more elaborated upon.
Why do you deem it to be vague?
Because with the rights thing, what rights are we exactly talking about? Do we think they should have more right? Oh, it's speaking in rights in general, correct?
Yeah.
The way I see that, it really varies from person to person, and that's based entirely around my religion.
Why?
Can you elaborate more on what you said why to?
You had said that whether people deserve rights depends upon person to person. Why on earth would it depend upon person to person?
It's dependent on their circumstances and how far they are into. Basically, it's if they had their gender reassigned or not, and what they've done before.
Okay, why does that dictate whether some people should have rights and some people shouldn't? I'm still not understanding where you're coming from.
I haven't been explaining. David, I knew this was going to come up. I should have memorized or noted the Torah verses, but there are verses within the Torah that explicitly state that people who both cross-dress and have their genitals amputated shouldn't be allowed to enter the congregation, essentially. I'm not sure. I don't remember the penalty on cross-dressing, but I remember the penalty of genital removal should be people being cast out from among the people.
Okay, I find it very curious that you referenced the Torah, which is the Jewish text. I understand that is also known as the Old Testament. Please don't shout at me.
Okay.
That genital mutilation should be, that if you mutilate your genitals, that you should be removed from the congregation, and yet it is a rite of it is a tradition within the Jewish community to have their genitals essentially mutilated. I would classify it as that. But
it's not the removal. I can read the text exactly if you want me to.
You see, I would kind of rather not, and the only reason that I would say not is because I think that is going to very, very quickly devolve into a debate upon religion, and that's not what tonight's debate topic is. I also just want to further say that you had said that where you're coming from is predicated on the Bible. I don't care what the Bible said any more than I care what John Picard said.
I know, and it ultimately turns into an argument of ethics, which is not something we'd be able to reach a conclusion upon, because ours are fundamentally different, and I'm not willing to argue ethics.
Why are you not willing to argue ethics?
Because mine are based on, presumption is based entirely upon what the Bible says. And I'm not going to, I could argue ethics with a Christian about what is ultimately right for a follower of Christ, but that's not something I can really do with an atheist.
Okay. I mean, I don't disagree with you.
All right.
Folks, we're dangerously close to drifting off topic again. Can we tighten it up a bit, please?
Do you have anything to ask me, essentially, Stephen?
Well, I mean, just to kind of address the topic, I mean, should transgender people have rights? I know that I kind of made like a silly kind of like a half-assed joke about it during my opening, but should transgender people have rights? You see, I think that's kind of in and of itself kind of worded badly. I think that how that question should be worded is, should people who are transgender have rights? Because I don't think that an individual classification of a singular person should come before personhood. We are all people, and I know that I'm probably going to get memed out of existence for saying this, but we live in a society, and every single one of us should have rights. We are all co-equal. We are all entitled to the same rights and to the same protections under the law, and that includes transgender people. I just want to kind of further say that I don't have any personal kind of dog in the race. Like, do I know people who are trans? Yes, I absolutely do. But like, technically speaking, and if you want to kind of like get really, really, really specific about it, whether or not transgender people have rights does not affect me one iota. I just simply think that they do, because they are a person and therefore they are entitled to rights. The same as I am, the same as you are, the same as every other person is.
Okay.
SicSemper, do you have anything to say in response to this, or perhaps should we move to our closing arguments?
No, I don't think it can really be expanded upon, because our definition, like I said, the whole trans rights argument, the topic in it of itself is an argument of ethics, and it's not something we'd be able to reach a conclusion upon, which is why I think that it should have been, the question of the debate should have been changed.
Okay, so you had said that your morals are based upon the Bible. What are your ethics based upon?
My ethics are based upon the Bible. The way I behave is based upon the Bible.
Well, as I referenced earlier, the two are somewhat interchangeable, but they are a little bit different, and they can be based upon different things.
Based upon different things.
Yeah.
Well, my entire sense of morality and ethics, moral principles, are centered around the Bible. I'm not sure what you're trying to ask here.
Basically, just to kind of get an understanding of why you think that, like, based upon the Bible.
Or once again, I may interrupt. This is not one of our call-in shows. This is a debate. Please stay away from topics of religion.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any sort of like a personal issue, I guess is probably the closest word that I can say, towards trans people? Or like, is this just based upon your presupposition?
It's solely based on my presupposition.
Okay. I'm still kind of struggling to understand why you just don't think that trans people should have rights. I'm really just kind of stuck on that.
Like I said, it varies.
More specifically, sorry. If I could just, I don't want Kevin to interrupt us again. So I had made reference in my opening argument that, that like people were saying, that like it was about extra rights or about special rights. And I had alluded to the fact that you were using that you were asking for extra or special rights when you were advocating for your position based upon the Bible. Do you have any sort of a response to that? And maybe that would kind of lead to a more productive conversation.
I'm really sorry. Can you repeat the last half?
Okay, so you had said that it was based upon the Bible and you advocating for extra or special rights. Or sorry, I had said that. Do you have anything to kind of respond to that with, and like maybe that would kind of lead somewhere productive?
No, because I think that Christians should have rights that are dominant over others. That's not something
I totally believe that. Sorry, dominant?
Yes.
No. We're going to find extreme difficulties there. You see, we live in a secularized society. All religions should be equal, but they don't get to override or they don't get to overrule individual people's lives.
I think otherwise, and we're detracting from the main topic. I hate how we keep doing this. I'm sorry. We really should have changed it.
Okay, people, I'm going to fill this silence. If nobody else has any salient points to bring to this open discussion, can we move to our closing arguments.
Yeah.
SicSemper, are you in agreement?
Sure, and you say I get the first closing argument?
Just the way it's gone back and forth, I think RAB will do the first closing, and then it'll move to yourself, if that's okay.
All right.
Perfect. Okay, RAB, as soon as you're ready to go, you will have 5 minutes to make your closing argument. Please proceed.
Okay, so as I had just alluded to, we live in a secular society. Any sort of a religion, any sort of a faith should absolutely have their protections. They should have the freedoms to be worshipped, etc., etc., etc. They should not come above any individual people's lives who do not prescribe to that particular faith. This is, I mean, like, it's a very simplistic argument in my view. Transgender people are people. They are people first, and based solely upon that, they are entitled to every single right, every single protection under the law, every single freedom, every single gratitude that each and every single one of us are also entitled to. I don't think that I have anything else to say, so I'll yield the rest of the time.
Okay, perfect. RAB, thank you very much for your closing argument. As soon as you're ready, you may make your closing argument there, SicSemper.
All right, sure. Like I've said before, the main reason I am against transgender rights and the whole process as a whole is based on my beliefs and based upon the Torah, but I think there can definitely be a secular argument and an ultimate argument of ethics used between individuals who do not hold a religious faith on whether or not people should be allowed to transition or have any other such rights. I would argue that on the basis of physical and potentially emotional well-being, that there should be alternatives found that cure gender dysphoria that are not transitioning and not having someone identify as the gender they were not born as. And that's my closing argument. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to both SicSemper Tyrannis and RAB for your very salient points during this conversation. We will now open the floor up to members of the Discord chat. Feel free to join in if you're a member of the queue, and if you have any questions and you would like answered and you prefer not to be on microphone, put them in the text chat and I will read them out for you.
Okay, so I suppose this is the point where we ask Esther if she's ready.
Oh wait, I'm unmuted. Well, Six, I'm still muted, so I can't really ask my question since Six, the person I was going to ask.
Hey.
So Six, I'm really confused. What religion do you subscribe to? Since, based on what I could see, you were referencing many different types of religious texts, whether that be the Torah, the Bible.
Well, the thing is, it's the Torah because the Torah is part of the Tanakh, and the Tanakh is part of the Bible. I'm a Christian.
What kind of Christian, if I may ask?
I don't adhere to any specific denomination because I disagree with most of the ones that I've come across. But if you were to compare me to any random denomination, I'd say I'm closest to Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay.
Or anything else.
Okay, thank you. So you disagree with the idea of cross-dressing and all that because of what was mentioned in the Bible, the Torah?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you also believe that the Bible gets rid of all the things in the Torah as thought of by many Christians I've met.
No, I disagree with all of them. I think Mosaic law should still be in place and observed.
Okay, that's the end of my question.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Anybody else want to join in the chat?
Oh shit, right, it's me. Right, so, Sick, at the end of the thing, you said we need to find alternative ways to help transgender people other than to transition. I just want to give you a little cool little fun fact here. They did a study on that, and it turns out the best way to help a trans person is to have them transition, to make them feel normal, to make them feel accepted by society. Do you accept that maybe we should listen to studies and facts on actually allowing people to transition and be accepted by society, rather than to keep repeating a narrative that is basically not accepted, and keep trying to this lie of we need to find alternative ways?
I view that as a pretty loaded question, but as kind of a way to answer it, I don't claim to be a psychologist, and perhaps right now, on terms of fulfilling their emotional well-being, perhaps the best answer as of now is to essentially let them transition. I don't disagree that may be the best for them emotionally, but I think from a religious standpoint that alternative methods should be found, and I don't think they are outside of reach.
But why should religious alternative be found when not everyone's religious? Like, shouldn't we just do it as a idea that we are all humans, that regardless of religion?
You can do it from that perspective, but the perspective of which I operate is religiously centered.
But we're arguing, like, the point of just, if the best way is the tradition, we should just accept that as, like, the baseline, right?
I didn't quite hear you too well there. Can you say that again?
If the best way to help them is for them to transition, we should just allow them to and accept them and help them, right?
From a biblical standpoint, I disagree. No, I don't think so.
Then I'm done here.
All right, thank you.
Hi. Can I get mute again, or am I just gonna...
Do you want to ask a second question?
I was gonna opt out of asking my question, but I might as well just say it anyway. I tried to leave the queue, but it wouldn't let me. So,
Okay.
I saw, this question is for Sick. So I saw this video where a pastor, I believe, or at least I believe a Christian apologist, was talking to an audience about the transgender question, and he gave a really nice argument that God knows exactly what it's like, at least the Christian God knows exactly what it's like to feel like he's in the wrong body, by, Jesus coming onto the earth as a human being tempted, but still, like, living as Christ. So he knows what it's like to be a transgender, so it isn't in any way arguing that, transgendered people can't be saved, or they're living in sin or anything like that, because God knows exactly what that feels like as he was Jesus. So when you say from a biblical standpoint that you disagree with transgenderism, or however you want to word it, how do you feel about that argument that I just gave to you?
I think that argument is contrary to what I consider to be the major foundation of Scripture, which is, of course, the Torah.
Mm-hmm.
I view that as in complete contradictory of what the Torah says. And I don't disagree that God himself knows what it's like for people who are struggling with anything at all, or any feeling, because God created everything. So logically,
Mm-hmm.
and he's omnipotent too. So naturally he would know exactly what it's all like.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think from that basis people should be allowed to transition or sin or do whatever. So that's my answer.
But just a quick follow-up. I know that you consider yourself to be a Christian, but you do quote the Torah a lot, and you seem to sometimes omit the New Testament with where Jesus comes in. So I just want to know, like, do you believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior?
I do believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I don't believe that in any way, by observing the Torah, I don't view it as not recognizing
Mm-hmm.
Christ. I don't perceive it that way. And the way I see it, the Torah leads us to Christ. That's kind of hard to elaborate on the spot, but I could probably talk to you more about that later.
That's nice. Okay, thank you.
I was going to quickly jump in before we take our next caller. If you want to put a text question, can you please phrase it as an obvious question? I was reading through a couple of meme stuff in the queue. Maybe I'm new to your community, but I don't know what to pay attention to and what not to. So sorry about that.
All right. So
And I'd also like to just very, very quickly say, does anybody have a question for me? Because I am an egomaniac.
my question is for both you and Sick.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. So
I'm happy again now.
according to a study done in Sweden between 1973 and 2003, in the 30 years that the experiment took place, they looked at 324 sex reassigned persons, 192 males and 191 males, and the rest females. And it showed that before and after transition, that suicide rates between them have not changed, and that their mental unrest was still present in their bodies. So knowing that this information now, do you still believe that gender reassignment surgery is the best cure for gender dysphoria?
I just have a quick question. You sent that in debate to text chat, right?
I can send it right now.
Yes, I'd really appreciate that.
I might as well just kind of take the opportunity just to answer that just kind of whilst we're waiting there. Yes, we should. I had mentioned it during the debate that there is not an adequate amount of follow-up counselling after gender reassignment surgery. These are very fragile people psychologically. Sorry, that probably wasn't the best way of phrasing it. They need to have that extra security, that extra protection, that extra benefit of being in some form of a counselling environment. And so if we improve on that, then I think that the suicide levels will go down.
All right, Sick, your turn.
I have no real comment or response.
That's not surprising. All right. Thank you.
Is anyone in the queue right now? Can't see it.
Come on, guys, you have a bunch of questions. You're just dying to ask them. Hurry up and join the queue or put a text question in.
There we go.
Hi again. So, I just was thinking of another question while I was waiting. Sorry, RIB, this is for Sick still. So you're against gender reassignment surgery and all that because of religion.
That's correct.
And all that, because you consider it mutilation. But if, hypothetically speaking, in the future there was a way to do it without harming the body, would you still be against it that way?
How is that conceivable? Can you explain that to me? How such a hypothetical would work?
Well, because currently gender reassignment surgery isn't completely viable in that it works, but it's not completely working thing in that a bit hard to explain just in a quick...
Hold on, wait, I think I know what you're asking. Are you saying under a circumstance in which someone would be literally capable of changing their chromosomes and basically just shifting into a female? I still view that as non-biblical because I still consider it I still consider it to remove the penis, essentially, which can't really be done, and it would still count as cross-dressing since it's not the gender of that person's original birth.
Okay, thank you. And a question?
All right.
My question is for RIB, I guess.
Great, cool, shoot.
So you said earlier that you base your ethics on well-being.
Yeah.
How does that exactly look? How does one base ethics on well-being?
Wow, that's usually a very long answer. I'm going to try and keep it as short as I possibly can. So, it is in the interest of my well-being that I don't come to any sort of harm, right? That my life continues to go on, right? That is in my best interests in terms of well-being. So when I apply that then to like my own personal life, I don't like do anything that would physically harm somebody's person, because that is not in the interest of their well-being, the same as it's not in the interest of mine. I probably didn't do the best the best job of explaining that, only because, as I said, it's a very long answer usually. So I hope that was adequate.
Well, I agree with your position, by the way. I'm what I would characterize as a utilitarian, which my buddy Luke is going to make fun of me for saying that again. But like how do you balance the needs of the individual, or the well-being of the individual, or the well-being of the collective? Like, how far would you prioritize the well-being of other individuals within the collective as superseding your own interests? And that's like ultimately a question without a correct answer. I recognize that.
Yeah.
But like, if Sick says that, like, to him, religion is, his most important thing, then to him it would be his individual well-being to like have his worldview enforced on everyone, right?
Yeah.
And I think the two of us can probably agree that that's bad for the collective at large. Yeah. But where is that line drawn is, I guess, the question.
Well, if you are advocating for a system, as I believe Sick would be, that would be detrimental to some people, right? It doesn't really even have to be kind of specified. If it's going to be objectively negative towards some people, then that is overruling well-being in that instance. And in any sort of a system, I do personally feel nothing should overrule anyone's personal well-being, and so I think that would kind of be a way of ensuring that wouldn't happen.
All right, fair enough. Yep, that's my question.
Any other people in the queue? Oh,
no, I think that's everyone.
No, it's like typing up something.
Do we have anybody else?
I have no idea.
Some people are typing some things, so maybe, who knows?
It's typing. I'm going under the presumption that he would have gone in the queue anyways. So.
God damn, Isley. There's so much hype over what you're typing. Oh, what
is this like the only trans person in the group? I think so, but that's why it's important. That's the would chant, but my family can hear me.
Is there anybody else in the queue?
Xander, how do we pronounce it if we're pronouncing it wrong?
It's Xander.
Isley?
It's Isley, I think.
Okay, perfect. I have a question.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's say someone has undergone HRT and so on, basically already transitioned. Should we, in your worldview, detransition them, or do you view that as being worthless?
Are you talking about, is this post-reassignment surgery?
What are you asking me?
I'm asking Isley.
I don't know why I'm messing.
It's not Isley, it's Isley. Okay. It can be both. Well, in the circumstance in which that person has gone under gender reassignment surgery, that already puts them at odds as they've...
SicSemper, that's the first joke you've ever said in your whole life.
Yeah. But... Damn it, you caught me off track of what I was going to say. But under the circumstances in which the person has already gone through gender reassignment surgery, then it's still a problem, as they can't be welcomed back into the congregation because their genitals have been removed. But in if they go through HRT and they have not yet gone through gender reassignment surgery, I think it would be able to be reversed logically. Does Sig? Oh, Centrist, can you read that?
Okay, so RAB, do you have any question? Would you like to respond to that question, or do we move on to the next question?
The question wasn't addressed towards me, and I don't think that's the
Certainly. Okay. Does Sick believe that the Christian God planned for people with gender dysphoria to exist?
Yeah, of course. If it wasn't within his will, they wouldn't have existed at all. If God doesn't want something or didn't expect something, it doesn't happen.
Okay, so we have a expansion from Isley. So I'm MTF and have already grown breasts. Should those be removed, or would that be mutilation?
The whole mutilation thing, that varies if it's from a theological standpoint or a different standpoint. Because I argued from a secular standpoint before, but I was only doing that to figure out more about RIB's viewpoints.
Okay, so Steam Game is asking RAB to follow up on that.
Okay, so if you believe that God intended for people with gender dysphoria to exist, do you not then think that God also intended for those people to make the necessary surgeries in order to fully transition?
He foresaw that people would sin. The whole reason sin exists is because of him.
I didn't ask you about sin. I asked you if he also foresaw that people would indeed do surgeries in order to fully transition.
Yes, he did foresee that.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, Isley
but I'm sorry, Isley, I've been neglecting your question with that one.
Okay, so Isley has followed up with another question. What makes removing one body part okay, but the other wrong?
That depends on which standpoint. If it's from my secular standpoint, that actually is a very good question, but from a religious standpoint, I don't inherently view removing things as wrong, like, for example, circumcision. But from a secular standpoint, that's a really good question. I don't have any real answer.
Izzy has another question. Apologies if there's a delay here. So why is it okay to remove my breasts if I have them since I've started to transition, but correcting my genitals is wrong?
Because correcting your genitals is against the teachings of the Torah. The thing is, you have to be removed from the congregation after that point. Not allowed to enter the assembly of the Lord. What about breasts? The Bible says nothing about breasts, so that you're good on that one. And those weren't there when you're born. Those are... I'm not sure how that kind of surgery works. So, Isley, can you elaborate more? Because I'm not extremely familiar with how it works with breasts when it comes to transition. If you could elaborate more on that, I'd appreciate it.
I mean, basically, just take a head rest and
unmute Isley. There we go.
So, what was your question?
Oh, damn it! You're still super damn quiet. I hate that.
Like your shit.
Can you put it right up against your mouth when you speak?
That already is.
Oh, that's terrible. But my question. Oh, I'm basically asking about how developing breast works in transitioning. How does that work?
It works the same as cis females and breast budding and so on, going through all the Tanner stages.
Okay, so it works that way, and it's through hormones, yes?
Yes.
Could you get rid of them without surgical removal?
No. Female to males have to go through surgery to remove them.
Huh. That is a good question. I don't really have any major answer, but the answer from a religious perspective is it's not in violation of the Torah, so you can go ahead and get those hubbies removed. I know, I clicked on his name, I have his volume up all the way, and he's still really damn quiet.
I've just done the same.
I'm done for now.
Alright, thank you. Is anyone else in the queue?
Thank you very much for your contribution, Isley.
Wait, is
I keep pronouncing it wrong. I'm sorry.
Isley? How does God want trans folk to overcome this problem? God doesn't. Well, the thing is, gender transitioning wasn't at the time in which the Bible was written, and you can kind of infer through the use of scripture, because why would God speak to Moses about gender reassignment surgery when that's not going to be around for another 2,000 plus, thousands of years?
Okay, we do have a question for Sick. You mentioned that all your morals are based on the Bible. What about when you were a child? I doubt children learn their morals from the Bible, since it's highly likely they haven't read the Bible in its entirety when young.
I know, and I've thought about that a lot. And the thing is, I think the entirety of morals are man-made, but through the brain, some of them might be more inherent, such as the one to protect your family, for example. That's one that can be based on biology. But I believe that a lot of it comes from the teachings of man. Like when I was young, when all of us were young, our parents taught us not to hit anybody, or it was something in a children's book or something about how hurting other people is wrong, and a bunch of other things. I can't think of which points I was taught different things, because I was a dumb little baby, and I don't remember very much from when I was a baby. But at that time period, I believe that people are taught different things about how they should conduct themselves. Hope that was an adequate answer to your question.
It's like,
I just kind of want to say very, very quickly. There's someone in the chat asking if it wants to kind of go to like another free-form discussion. Unfortunately, that's not up to me. That's going to be up to Esther, I guess, in this case. So
free-form discussion. Should we have a topic or no?
Well, I mean, then again, I mean, like, Sick, if it's okay with you, I mean, after we end the recording for the iDebates channel, I mean, you can stick around for my upload if you're okay with doing that.
I'd say it depends very heavily on the topic. Like, for example, would I be willing to get in a whole conversation about ethics? Probably not. But would I argue something that I have a very strong opinion of that can be argued strongly from a secular standpoint? Like, for example, intervention? Yes, but as you've told me, you are not pro-intervention, you're anti-intervention, so you're in the same boat with me. But I don't know, it depends on the subject, really.
Okay, so Esther, I just want to kind of make sure, are you saying that it's okay for us to go into another free-form discussion?
Yes, if I find the topic desirable.
Yeah, but not recorded. Okay, that's fine.
I mean, as to the rules of the debate, we do still have another 22 minutes here. So because
it was there for an hour, but the questions only last for
Isley says she might have
how long the actual debate lasts.
Isley says she might have a question,
lasts less than an hour, then it's only lasts half an hour. So.
Okay. Right. Oh wait. Isley's typing something up.
Yeah.
So for females to males, so let's say they have had top surgery but not bottom, as you said, they are already in favor of detransitioning them. Would you be in favor of giving them plastic surgery to give them breasts again? Wait. Would I be in favor of giving them plastic surgery? I don't know. There's nothing inherently against plastic surgery within the Torah. I don't operate it. I would be against it based on my own personal intuition, but within the grounds of the Torah, it's considered a that would be along the lines of something that's disputable. So it's really up to the individual at that point.
Yeah, okay, so it's my understanding that Esther has kind of said that we can
Another 20 minutes.
bet another 20 minutes. So yeah, I mean, I'm okay with opening it up to like another kind of form of like a free form discussion, sake if that's all right with you.
Free form discussion, and it can be on any topic.
So far as I'm aware, yeah, I mean, it just said that it was opening up for another free discussion. It didn't mention
Okay.
any
I
topics.
remember on the podcast a long time ago, we talked about guns, and guns is something that I like to argue about. What is your standpoint on gun control, essentially?
Okay, I know I said
Wait, yeah.
any
Hold on.
topic, but like
Any
I meant
topic related
like
to
any
transgender.
topic
Oh.
to do with the overall one, not like literally
Overall one,
any
my
topic.
bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Confused.
Yeah.
All right.
No, you're all right, man. You're all right. You're all right.
Good. Anything related to the transgenderism topic, yes.
Yeah.
Because that is going to be the
Perhaps
title of this video.
Perhaps anything
yeah.
I would have cut you off on during the debate. Feel free to flesh it out for the remaining 20 minutes, okay?
Okay. RIB, do you have anything? Because I think I got everything that I wanted to get out there covered.
Yeah, okay, so you had mentioned that you get your ethics from the Bible. Like what specific so like if you just kind of want to elaborate on that a little bit, and I'll just kind of respond then as you say things.
Well, elaborate. I guess the best way I can define it, I don't really know what precisely you want me to elaborate on that I haven't said already. It's kind of
Well, you were kind of attempted to, but then we were cut off because it was kind of straying away from the overall point. So if you had said that you get your morality and your ethics from the Bible. I think it was kind of said a little bit there earlier in the chat. Someone had asked the question. So if you believe that you get your morality from the Bible, before you read the Bible in its entirety, do you believe that you were an immoral person?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to lie, that's not the answer I was expecting to that question. Okay, why even in your worldview then is it not okay for trans people to transition?
My entire worldview, all of it is based on the Bible.
Okay, so you had mentioned genital mutilation. Is removing the foreskin not classed as genital mutilation?
It's not classed as... I can look up the exact verse of which it mentions what constitutes as removal of privates or not. Hold on.
I didn't say removal of the... I didn't say removal.
I know you said mutilation, and I think I might have gave the wrong impression. Come on, where is it?
Okay, but the only thing that I would have to kind of say on that is that I would argue that unwillingly removing someone's foreskin against their will and against their consent is genital mutilation.
Yeah, it can be considered that.
Okay, so if that's something that your Bible advocates for and you're okay with your Bible because it's where you get your worldview from, then by what right or by what moral standpoint do you get to comment on anyone who is attempting to transition?
Transition, because the Bible explicitly states that if someone has their genitals removed, it is a fundamental problem. Hold on, I'm trying to find the exact verse.
I mean, if we want to get really, and I mean if we want to get really, really, really technical about it, they're not actually removed, they're just reallocated.
Reallocated. I'm trying to find and read it here. Can
I interject very quickly? Isley has posted saying that she can answer questions related to her transition if you want to answer some. Is that something that would interest either of the participants?
That would interest me in the future, but not in this particular discussion that I've just started delving into.
I mean, I would be kind of okay with. I mean, we have another 15 minutes, another 5, and then opening the floor up to her. Sure. I'd be okay with going about this for another 5 minutes, with leaving 10 remaining, and then leaving the floor up to her. I'd be perfectly comfortable doing that.
Oh yeah, definitely. But to go forth, No one who is emasculated or has his male organ cut off shall enter the assembly of the Lord.
Sorry, could you say that again? Sorry.
It's Deuteronomy 23:1. No one who
Okay.
is emasculated or has his male organ cut off shall enter the assembly of the Lord.
Okay, but that doesn't fit in with the definition of someone who is transgender because they don't have it cut off, they have it reallocated.
Reallocated are, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't the testicles removed in transition?
The testicles are, but the penis is not.
The testicles, well, it's defined as male organ right here.
Male organ. So if you have,
Yes.
so if you're saying that if you're saying that a male organ shouldn't be removed, and if it is, then they should be disqualified from the congregation. Do you think that somebody who donates a kidney should be removed from the congregation because they have had an organ cut off?
No, it specifies male organ, which implies
Male organ, right? Okay, so if a man goes and gets his kidney removed, then
no, hold on. I can look into the specific. I can delve into the whole etymology of the verse with the Hebrew.
Okay, I understand. I understand now. So you're saying that the male organ, you're interpreting that as being the penis, but I have just interpreted it as being as any male donating an organ. What, like, how do you know that you're right and I'm wrong?
That's an argument of semantics, and I can prove you wrong by reading the original Torah text and divulging what each Hebrew word means.
Each Hebrew word?
Yes, the Torah and the entire Tanakh was written in Hebrew.
Yeah, okay, but you see, there's a massive problem there, you see, because it was written in original Hebrew, and then it was translated and retranslated and retranslated and retranslated and retranslated, and no, I have not broken up, or no, I have not, there's nothing wrong with my audio, it's just been retranslated so many times. Who's to know what it is actually said?
Are you familiar with the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yes, I am, but they're not the original scrolls. They're not the original parts of the Bible. They're not the original parts of the Bible.
Was it not? Its age has been estimated to be 400. It was created around 400 BC, right? If I'm not mistaken.
400 BC, yeah, but that's 400 years of translating.
That's 400 years of translating, yet we still have the original text.
Yeah, but you don't have the original text.
Not the original text, but one of the oldest texts before these massive translations. This would be around the time of Judah. This was before the Maccabean revolt.
No. So what you have is the Dead Sea Scrolls. You don't have the original text. So how do you know that the Dead Sea Scrolls is a direct translation with no errors whatsoever from the original?
Because it's in Hebrew and it's been passed down. The Torah was originally...
But it was retranslated several times, so how do you know that it was retranslated correctly and there was no errors?
What languages was the Dead Sea Scrolls? What translations did they go through?
Folks, we're getting lost in the weeds here talking about the Bible and the semantics of the Bible and the languages of the Bible. This is not what we're talking about at all, let's be honest. We only have 10 minutes left. There's a few more questions that have popped into the chat. I'm just going to read them out, okay?
Let's jump right in there. I apologize.
Yeah, okay, first one. So this came in a while back. Sorry, Steam Game. I didn't get to you till now. Steam Game. Quick last minute question for Sick. Just to make sure, do you believe in free will? Correct?
Do I believe in free will? It depends on what you mean by that. I've heard the whole rodeo and where people go through the semantics of free will. I want to know exactly what you mean by free will.
Okay, well, I mean, there's no follow of that. But there's another question from Isley. It just goes, you can rebuild genitals, right, at sick, so would you want to reverse A or S or?
Well, the thing is that's the problem because the private members have already been cut off. It's speaking in general, if they get cut off once, that's it. Even if you get them reattached, you still can't enter the assembly.
Perfect. So the next question on to it, Isley again. What would you do with intersex people saying that they have both genitals In that case, since they're both male and female, would you find with them transitioning to one of those sex fully?
It's a real anomaly, but if I was put in that circumstance, I would probably not. I would just continue to... That actually is a really good question. There's nothing I can think of immediately within the Torah that would specify such an issue. So I guess you got me with a really good question that I frankly can't find an answer for. I can answer, who asked that? That was Isley, right?
Yes.
Okay, I will look into that more and I'll talk to you more about it later. I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question immediately. That's a good one.
Okay, perfect. So we have another question there. So for Sick, if all of your world views are based on the Bible, why aren't you Amish?
Why aren't I Amish?
Yes.
I would like to be Amish. That would be pretty cool. But the Amish don't keep the Sabbath, so their entire worldview isn't centered around the Bible. They're wrong.
Okay.
But I would basically like to be virtually Amish if I was able to keep the entire Bible. Being Amish would be pretty cool.
Okay. And for RAB, if you're finished Sick, for RAB, don't you think it's counterintuitive that people who suffer from gender dysphoria are to get gender reassignment surgery? If a depressed person wants to commit suicide, should that person be allowed by a psychiatrist to commit suicide?
Yes. You have full and total control over your body. You have the right to die whenever you so choose. I believe in euthanasia, basically.
Really? For suicide?
For suicide, yeah.
For fucking depression as well?
You decide when you want to check out, man.
Okay. That's a harsh pill to swallow, RAB.
RAB, as kind of like a follow-up question to your answer, would that not be against the well-being of the individual?
Yeah, on the face of it, yes. But in that sort of a circumstance, you are basically asking the person to be forced between one of two paths, to be continuing to live a life that they deem as being so unescapably miserable and unescapably full of torment and pain and emotional abuse. I mean, like, we don't know how many times this particular individual has attempted to end their own life before. If the person is deemed to have an irreconcilable severe depression, then I think that euthanasia in that case should be allowed. I think that it could also possibly be argued that given the correct set of circumstances, it is actually in their well-being to end their own life.
Actually in their well-being to end their own life.
Under severe and very strict circumstances, yes.
All right, so in that case, that would ultimately answer that you put emotional well-being in front of physical well-being. I'm speaking in general, not like in specific cases or whatever.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Wouldn't that put it generally that you prize emotional well-being over physical well-being?
If a sufficient case presents itself, yes.
What example would be a sufficient case?
Somebody who has suffered from severe chronic depression for several years, who has attempted to end their own life on several occasions.
No,
I'm sorry. I'm just kind of fully aware that there are some more questions that are in the chat, and we only have about 6 minutes left of the actual recording. So if we could just kind of fly through these, we'll end it there.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to want to read that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question that's actually phrased as a question is from Esther. How does RAB feel about pedophiles being considered a sexual preference by some? Should we just dot?
I don't know. I think
I
that's
get,
mostly a
I
meme.
get, I get the gist. Okay, yeah. So this is going to make me popular in the room. Pedophilia is way too often conflicted with the act of pedestry. The act of pedestry is when you sexually engage with a minor when you are an adult. A pedophile cannot control their sexual preferences any more than anybody else can. Or sorry. No, I want to backtrack that. They can control them. They cannot help who they are. Who they find sexually attractive. There is an inherent issue, of course, with any adult being sexually attracted towards a child that they are in need of severe counselling. But it's kind of funny that you bring it up. I can't remember the name of the exact group, but there are a group of people in the States who are all admitted pedophiles who are sexually attracted towards children, who speak out and who are just as up in arms as you, me, and everybody else are when they hear conversation about them.
Was that just me, or did you cut out that entire time?
Yeah, I think that was just for response to another question that you got earlier on. Jesus, there's so many things popping in.
Okay,
going back to the free will question. Steam Game also goes to, well, what do you find free will as? Free will usually means that the ability to actively choose one's own decisions and have an effect on one's future through one's actions. According to Google, quote, the power of acting without the constraint of necessity or fate, the ability to act at one's own discretion.
so sorry to put it in layman's terms, but essentially do whatever you please within the limits of what you are capable of doing physically. Like, for example, would you say that it's not free will if I can't jump up and fly like Superman? If I want, despite me wanting to?
Okay, so do you believe in it?
Do I believe it? Based on my own definition, yeah, I do believe in free will.
Do you believe in the ability to have an effect on one's own future through one's decisions, or is it decided by God?
That's a very tough one. I think it's ultimately decided by God, since the entire universe is centered around His will. Well, it would be what He allows to happen, essentially. So it would be within His will, yeah. It's entirely centered around God's will.
Okay, so people who go through gender reassignment surgery did that by God's decision, correct?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
God allowed them to, yes. God made them physically capable of doing that to themselves.
Okay. Esther, feel free to ask your question. I'm coming through the same mic as Stephen is.
Okay, so this is for RIB. I just want some clarification. So I understand how you were like. I don't want to accuse you of anything, so I have to make sure that I'm asking this correctly. So I
no problem.
understand that you said the whole like they need more like transgender people. They need more counseling. They need more this, and the best way to make them feel better is to allow them to be accepted in society.
Yeah.
But when it comes to pedophilia, when they have those feelings that they can't, I don't want to say pedophilia, whatever the right word is that you said,
Pedestry.
They have urges that they can't control. How are we supposed to deal with that?
Well, they can control them.
Well, they feel the sexual urge towards children that is obviously harmful for children. So what do you think we should do in that case? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Okay, well, what do you think I'm going to say?
I think you should say because it's harming other people that they can't do it and they need counseling.
Exactly.
Oh, gotcha.
Exactly.
Got you.
Exactly, yep. You got it.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions, centrist?
And this will probably be the last question as well, because we're just at time there.
All right.
Steam Game had a request for you, RAB, to follow up. I don't know if this was followed up on. I wasn't.
Yeah, I'm unsure of what your
Context, please. There's so many questions.
It's fucking disgusting, and I literally just want to fucking kill you.
So we have the will to act, but no, it is not free. We do not have free will, but we do have a will.
Wait, was that question directed at me? Or
Me. I don't know why I keep saying that I'm cutting out. We do have the will to act, but we don't have free will. We have a will. It's not free. I will explain that further if you wish me to, but it'll probably have to be after the actual recording ends because we're just up on time now.
Yeah.
Please do afterwards. Yeah, absolutely I will.
Yeah, everybody, I do believe that we're just up on time there now. That was a fantastic debate from SicSemper Tyrannis and the religion is bullshit. We definitely learned an awful lot more than we thought that we'd even be talking about when we started this debate. It kind of got off the rails, but in a good way. So everybody, watch, comment, whatever, subscribe if needs be to whomever. I don't really care. So, and hopefully we'll do this again. This is very enjoyable. And I think we're finished now.
Yeah, okay, so have you finished recording?